For more on this, we're now being joined by Edward P. Joseph, a conflict management expert with 15 years of experience, as well as a foreign policy lecturer and analyst. He's currently a senior fellow at the Johns Hopkins University. Sir, welcome to World DNA. Always a pleasure to have you.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
Now, sir, a senior advisor in Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps has been killed allegedly by an Israeli airstrike outside Damascus. We know how volatile the situation is. We've seen multiple fronts in this war. What will be the repercussions of this?
I'll get to that in a second, but first let's just say on this Christmas Day here in the United States and in many parts of the world that we have to hope that diplomacy being led by Egypt will lead to, of course, the end of this suffering that you noted in your report there of Palestinians, and of course the release of those well over 100 Israeli hostages still being held by Hamas after they were seized after Hamas's brutal attack on October 7th, which of course launched this war. And to answer your question, the repercussions remain to be seen. The most we're talking about now, this alleged Israeli strike on an Iranian commander in Lebanon, an Iranian commander presumably associated with Hezbollah. And Hezbollah remains, that is really the main mystery of this entire tragic conflict, again, launched by Hamas on October 7th, which is why would Hezbollah, this heavily armed militia with all of these strong, capable missiles, why would Hezbollah, backed by Iran, not take advantage of the fact that Israel's army is deployed in Gaza and Israel is at its most vulnerable? And yet Iran has not so far attacked, except recently we've seen the Houthis, the Iranian-backed militia from Yemen, attacking international ships in the Red Sea, and apparently Iran itself has attacked a commercial ship in the Indian Ocean. So we can imagine that this strike, if it was by Israel on this Iranian commander, was a message to Iran, a signal to Iran from Israel that if you escalate, Israel is prepared to respond. And so far, again, that would appear to have resonance with Iran, because so far it has not given the green light to Hezbollah to attack, again, very oddly, at Israel's most vulnerable moment. Please.
Mr. Joseph, you know, there were some quotes which came in, certain things that were said. I just want to quote it as it was said. Israel will pay for what it did. This is, of course, coming in from the Iranian regime. And as far as the Israeli defense minister is concerned, he said that what Israel did in Gaza, it can also be done in Beirut. Now, these are, what do you see, how do you see these statements coming in from the two fronts? Do you feel it is it's more of lip service? Do you feel it is more of, these are empty threats? Do you find weight behind this? How do you see this impacting going forward? Because now we're actually seeing somebody from Iran. It's not an Iranian proxy which has been attacked. It's actually somebody from Iran, from the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, who has been killed.
These are all valid questions that you ask. Let's put some perspective here. First of all, it's not the first time that Israel apparently has taken out a Iranian commander. It's happened several times in Syria. So it's not the first time. We have to understand that, yes, of course, no, but your question is valid, and this is tense, and it's nothing to be, the words as well are nothing to be dismissed. They're meant to convey messages of deterrence. That's the message from Israel. The message from Israel is that it will not be cowed by fears of Iran utilizing Hezbollah. From the Israeli side, it's a demonstration of resolve, of preparedness to take on Hezbollah, readiness to take on Hezbollah. And of course, for Iran, it's more of a matter of trying to save some face here, because we have to remember, Iran styles itself as the head of this so-called axis of resistance. Well, if you are the leader of this axis of resistance and you see this Israel deployed now, its forces deployed on the ground and focused almost completely on this conflict with Hamas in Gaza, why not take advantage of that? This would be the golden opportunity, and yet Iran doesn't move. I think perhaps there's a measure of exposure on the part of Iran, which is why it has given the green light to the Houthis to make these attacks in the Red Sea, and why Iran itself has taken on apparently this strike on the commercial vessel in the Indian Ocean to try to save some face, to try to show that Iran is somehow involved, when in fact Iran is afraid to get involved and is preserving Hezbollah for its own strategic interests back home. That's how Iran uses Hezbollah. It's meant to protect Iran. Please.
So, of course, let's also talk about the situation on ground and, of course, the hostage situation, which is a cause of concern, great concern, in fact. And we've seen how Israel's operations in Gaza, it's drawn the ire from not just around the world, but also families of the hostages. Now, Israel wants to intensify military pressure to get hostages out. What do you make of this approach?
Okay, and again, we should add, not only is the pressure from families of the hostages, but also the United States, President Biden, and of course many Americans, myself included, who any human being has to be deeply concerned about the toll on innocent Palestinian life in Gaza. But of course you come to the question of hostages, and we have to here, of course, arrive at Hamas's own share of responsibility for the situation in Gaza, having seized these brutally seized these hostages, some of whom even include an infant that was seized in this murderous attack on October 7th. And they, of course, represent the key to achieving what we all want to see, which is an end to this strike and suffering in Gaza. Now, what I take from the way I interpret what Prime Minister Netanyahu is conveying here, this determination, it's very similar to this we see with both Iran and Israel in Lebanon. It's trying to convey determination. This is the war is at an acute point here. And what Prime Minister Netanyahu, in my opinion, is trying to convey is determination and resolve towards Hamas, and in so doing, obtain perhaps a diplomatic solution that will see the release of the hostages. And here, again, we come to the role of the Egyptians and this very important, ambitious proposal by Cairo to not only achieve a temporary ceasefire, but actually end this terrible conflict. And as part of that, of course, Hamas to accept those terms, which apparently Hamas does not like, and nor does Israel like all of the terms of the Egyptian proposal. But in order to do that, Hamas needs to fear a continuation of the conflict. And I believe that's what Prime Minister Netanyahu is trying to signal. Please.
Okay, Mr. Joseph, thank you so much for joining in on World DNA. Always a pleasure to have you here with us on the show.
You're welcome.